They said it wouldn't last, and they said that you can't drive profitable and incremental revenue through the affiliate channel. But here we are, 20 years later, and the affiliate channel is alive and kicking and generating profitable revenue for thousands of retailers across the globe. Hi, I am Jamie Birch, your host of the Profitable Performance Marketing Podcast, where we talk to some of the industry's best and brightest about their careers, about leadership, and about how to drive profitable revenue through the affiliate channel. Well, welcome to the Profitable Performance Marketing Podcast. I am Jamie Birch, founder and CEO of JEBCommerce, your award-winning affiliate marketing management agency. So today we have an awesome guest, a special guest, and yes, one of my favorite people in the industry, maybe one of my favorite people on the planet, Sarah Beeskow Blay, formerly of ShareASale. But before I introduce you to her and our episode, I want to tell you a little bit about a product, a service that we have available to you called the Strategy Roadmap Development. So a lot of our clients come to us to manage their programs for a very long time and hit their growth goals every month, every quarter. But maybe you don't need that. And you just need to know what the strategy is you need to take to grow your affiliate program. So we have that service to you. You can go to jebcommerce.com/services/affiliate-program-strategy-development. Now, I know that is a mouthful. I will include a link in the show notes for you to go to so you can have access to that. So in that, we go over your network setup. Which network? Are you on the right network? Your return order setup. We talk about your competing brands, how you compare to the competition. We do a full gap analysis on your current partners, your top affiliates, who you need to be outreaching to and who they are. We introduce you to those affiliates. We do a comprehensive affiliate activation strategy. We look at your affiliate category diversification, a review of all your communications and compliance. This is really important. FTC audits and all the other things you need to be compliant. We look at your commission rate and your cookie days. We compare that with, are they optimized and set up to achieve your ROI goals, your new customer acquisition goals, and a whole bunch more. So if you want to get access to that, you can email me at gethelp@jebcommerce.com, or you can go to the link in our show notes for our affiliate program strategy development. Now, on to today's episode. I just had such a great time. Sarah is amazing and one of the most genuine and authentic human beings that I've had the good fortune to work with. And we talked about just about everything. We really dove into her career. And it's pretty amazing. Her time at ShareASale and AWin, and starting entry level at ShareASale and ending that step in her career as the vice president of ShareASale, and all that entails. Sarah was kind enough to share with me her leadership lessons, and the big one was kindness. And she talks about engagement and gave me and you a bunch of ways that you can engage your staff. But then, we dove into issues like morality and corporate morality and how that's impacting shopping decisions of consumers and how it's kind of shifting. I'm not going to give it away. You got to listen to it. But when we talk about pivots that affiliate marketers and brands in general are making during this time, we dive into some really unique types of partnerships that you can have with affiliates and how to really utilize them right now. So this is a great podcast. It's about an hour and 10 minutes long. I think you'll find it really valuable. And Sarah, thank you so much for joining me. Hopefully someday soon we get to have a drink face to face and can continue our discussion. So why don't we just dive right in to my discussion with Sarah Beeskow Blay. Well, good afternoon, Sarah. I am so excited to talk to you. And I have to admit, I am a little nervous. Welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you, Jamie. I'm so excited to be here. And likewise, I have excited butterflies, I would say.
I guess that's the way, it's all how you frame it. You
It's
can
true.
be nervous or excitement. And I have in the past struggled with anxiety, and
Mm.
that reframing from I'm super nervous and anxious to, oh, I'm actually excited. When you realize they're the same thing,
Yeah.
it feels the same, it really makes a difference. So I too am very excited. We'll
There you go.
reframe that.
Exactly it. Exactly it.
Well, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. It's a beautiful day here in Chicago. Sunny, you can't really wish for much more.
That's awesome. Now,
How about you?
I'm doing well. It seems that every week we have new things to deal with.
Yeah,
Yesterday saw the news on the Beirut explosion was just unreal.
unreal. Yeah, I know.
So, thinking of
This,
those people and the just the like the I don't even know how big of an area that impacted was crazy.
I was thinking about the same thing, and actually, my husband and I were talking about that earlier today, and he was mentioning that there was a similar explosion here, which I didn't even realize. But he was saying that it affected airlines and yeah, many casualties. So it's unbelievable. This year is you just never know what to expect. I'm telling you, each week, like you said, there's something new between murder hornets and
Yeah.
COVID and the economy. I mean, there's so much that I think people are dealing with. But I think, at the end of the day, too, it really, for myself especially, but I'm sure everybody, obviously, there's so much that you can learn about yourself through that, and what you kind of overcome, and that you're maybe more adaptable than you had previously given yourself credit for. And, just kind of how we pull together and pull through and rely on each other, to build each other up. So through all the troubles, I think there's a lot of beauty in the year, too.
Yeah, and I've had those conversations of like this has been a time of learning about yourself. I've learned that quarantining is my spirit animal.
Yeah.
I am totally okay staying at home
Yeah.
all the time. I had no problem with it. There was no adjustment period. It's been, I know people are struggling out there with it, and there's a lot of angst around it and a lot of difficulty. But yeah, I learned like to a fault, I can be by myself and with my family and not interact
Yeah.
in other areas, and that's you know. Now I can see kind of where that's been a problem. What was like one thing you learned about yourself through all this?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that traditionally I always think of or thought of myself as kind of an extrovert with a little bit of introvert, tendencies. And yeah, I agree with you 100%. Through quarantine, I thought it would be a lot more difficult than it actually has turned out to be. And not too long ago, I was thinking about that for myself. Like, should I be concerned that I don't care that I'm not leaving the house? Like, is that okay? Should I be wanting to do this more? But I think we've just, found more ways to connect to people. So you still do have some level of interaction with your friends or family. And, I feel pretty blessed that in our, we're in downtown Chicago. So I'm not in a huge amount of space, which is really what I worried most about because I've got my stepson and my husband here and
Hmm.
two cats, in a condo with no yard. So I really thought that
Oh
we were
man.
going to struggle with not having, more just space, to breathe like you've got out there, right? But it's been, I
Yeah.
think you just you adapt quickly, and we've gotten along luckily, and so no complaints, and it's surprisingly kind of comfortable like you said. Kind of I've tackled the table here is like my makeshift little office, and it's working out just fine.
That's great. We're actually, and we do have a lot of room. So I do have to like, that's a big caveat. I live on 10 acres. So the quarantining it's so different than, the struggle was very little for us than compared
Yeah.
to, someone living in the city like yourself. In the beginning, I had conversations with people in Brooklyn
Oh yeah.
and LA and things like that. And even in Europe, some of the major cities in Europe. And the experience was so dramatically different. So my heart goes out to you and to everyone else who's had to deal with this uh, differently.
Yeah, I think that's so true. Likewise was chatting with folks in New York, and that I don't know. I think it's all relative, right? You always, I feel like there's a cartoon about that where there's, um, somebody who's wishing that they're on a bike, wishing they had the beater car,
Yep, yep.
wishing up, up, up. And so it just, you never know. And it's all relative to your experience, I think. But yeah, I was thinking the same thing because, you know, while, we may not have a ton of room to roam, we have, the condo and at least, a full kitchen. And then, yeah, I think about, my heart goes out to those and even smaller spaces with the half kitchens or the kitchenettes or maybe even no stove, you just,
Yeah.
there's always, I don't know, a lot to be grateful for.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, a lot of people, now is the time you really get to see the good in people. We've
Hmm.
seen plenty of, awfulness lately as well. But one of the things that my biggest concern right now, or one of them, is as we get back to school. Um,
Yeah.
we're fortunate enough that my wife has homeschooled for a really long time. We don't have to be a dual income home. And when we look at single parents or, people who have to work both, two places. So my wife is helping out with a few people here locally to help them as, back to school isn't looking like you're actually going back
Yeah.
physically anywhere. So that's something that I don't know if we've really determined how that's going to impact things in the third quarter this year.
Yeah, I do agree. My heart really goes out to all of those parents because, like you said, with a variety of, whatever circumstance they may have, be it single parents or two parents working or, whatever, kids of all ages, where they may have been in different school buildings, if it's high school, middle school, or what have you. And yeah, just having to quickly figure out when there is no right or wrong answer right now because they're trying to figure it out as we go,
Yeah.
so it really is unprecedented. And yeah, I mean, just have to take my hat off to tip of the hat to everybody that's trying to figure it
Chapeau.
out, from the teachers and the parents and
Yeah.
all of it. And how quickly we've been able to spin up, the technology piece of that has just been really, really impressive. um,
Yeah.
and
In
I know
just the
that they've had,
summer.
yeah, exactly, and just so quickly having to, not only for the students to get used to the online learning, but for the teachers to figure out the lesson plans. And, I know it hasn't been perfect, although, for everybody across the board, but, it's just, yeah, when people come together, it's amazing what you can accomplish in a short amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah. That has been impressive. So moving on to other things, we could probably talk COVID
I know
and
for,
pandemic and for the entire hour. I don't know if people would enjoy that. We get that so much everywhere, right?
yeah.
So for our listeners, like, tell us, how did you become an affiliate marketing legend? Like, what's your career path been? And
Legend is
you are an affiliate
generous, I
marketing
would say.
legend. Just saying.
Well, let's see. My career has been the following, I would say. I started out in Michigan. Actually, I was working at the Michigan Association of Broadcasters for 7 years, and that is a nonprofit association that supports the local television and radio stations in the state. So that was a really fun job. I actually landed that through an internship that turned into full time and stayed there for a good number of years doing their membership and services for the association. So that covered, a variety of projects too, like their awards presentations. But I think most impactful, or the biggest takeaway or proud moment was helping to roll out the Amber Alert system for the state of Michigan. So we were able
Oh,
to be involved with that from the broadcast level to kind of coordinate, for the stations and how those alerts go out, but then also with the state police and the state legislatures to get the program off the ground because it was in its inception when I was there. So that's where I started. And, after 7 years, just ready for a change, wanted to move to the big city. So came to Chicago and was recruited by Brian Littleton um, to come join ShareASale, which was relatively young. It was 2005. So they were about 5 years old. And Brian was looking to create a client service division for the network to really support the merchants at the time. So I had a lot of like, are you sure moments? Because while I definitely had, marketing and PR and, client experience through the Broadcast Association, I did not have any affiliate background. Um, But luckily, Carolyn Tang, or Carolyn Komet now, was working at ShareASale. And so I was able to work under her, and she really showed me the ropes and continues. She was such a veteran, still is.
Yeah.
True
Another legend.
legend, I would say, true legend in this
Yeah.
space, and definitely a mentor. So that was unbelievable. And so that's kind of how I started out with ShareASale. And yeah, that just advanced over 14 years, where I was building out their
Wow.
client service team. Yeah, which, from when I started was really just focusing on the merchant side. And through the years, I was overseeing then the publisher, agency, merchant, tech integration, and our customer support teams. So it really kind of, grew. And there was definitely a lot of pivots and sort of leadership lessons, I guess, through that time and just building that department. And
Hmm.
then we were acquired 2017 by Awen. So at that time, that's when I was tapped to be their VP and run all the operations for our Chicago office, and
Oh,
for
wow.
ShareASale brand. Yeah, so it was really cool to be able to go through not only an acquisition like that, but having then these new resources in Awen, which was a global company. So just seeing their operations and being able to learn from their leaders and kind of leaning on each other in that way, it was a very unique time. And even from a leadership perspective too, having to go through something that was a new challenge for everybody. And so yeah, that was great. So that was the last couple of years. And at the end of 2019, I decided to leave ShareASale. And again, just kind of all on good terms, but just ready to, take a new step, have a new challenge. Really kind of saw, I feel like, the full kind of life cycle of a career there. So ready for something new. And interestingly enough, when I left, I didn't have a plan. I really focused all my energy on making sure I made a good transition out of ShareASale,
Hmm.
saved up my money to be able to then, all right, then when I leave, I'm going to give myself a few months to find my next career, my next, point of life, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, so enjoyed the holidays and family time. Had a new job set to start in February, which then COVID. So here we go.
Yeah.
It was initially, the offer was postponed, and then the offer was indefinitely postponed. So then I was like, uh oh, so much for my
Yeah.
trying to, make a nice exit, and really putting my exit strategy first. I was like, oh crap, now this offer well, didn't necessarily fall through, but it's indefinitely postponed. So I needed to really
Mhm.
quickly come up then with a new plan. And in COVID, where the opportunities are much more competitive and things like that. So ended up making a quick pivot into what I was lucky enough, started as initial project, has kind of grown and evolved, that my 100% focus is now on independent contract and freelance work. So I'm so happy about that. It's ended up being a big surprise, but in the best way, where it really feels like, oh, this maybe is actually where I meant to be this whole time. I just didn't know it. I hadn't planned for it,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
but yeah, in the process of creating my LLC, and just need to kind of finalize my name. I feel like I need
Oh,
to do
that's
a, like a competition or something. I need help.
there you go. I have been struggling with our name for a decade and
Ah,
I can't get away from it. So, you know, I would say do the work. I said JEBCommerce because it was simple. I could trademark it and I could move forward quickly. And I guess it's been successful, but always wanted to get my name off of it. But that one of the things that is you know I definitely want to talk about what you're doing now. But I don't want to skip over ShareASale. That's a pretty awesome trajectory. You started out as an account manager, and I
yeah,
would assume that's relatively, entry level in the organization.
100%.
And you in that time you went from there to running that organization after the acquisition. What was that like through that journey? Now, we've had strong relationships with ShareSelf for a really long time, and we've had the blessing of knowing all of you guys really well. So it is not surprising that that trajectory is possible. But tell me what that's like to enter on that first rung, achieve the top, and then be able to transition out.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, honestly, so much of, I think in life in general, success, there's a lot of, I always say, I always try to stay humble and kind, because so much of it, while yes, it's dedication, hard work, and, I don't want to take away from, I guess, the accomplishments of what you do as a person, to achieve success. But there is a lot of the right place and the right time too. I was lucky enough to come into an organization that was in a startup. It was in its infancy, so you're there from the beginning, and or relatively the beginning. And
Mhm.
and Brian was so smart and such a marketing genius in so many ways. And along with his brother Michael, our CTO, was able to build agile and cutting edge technology for the network. So there's a lot of the work that they're doing too to establish that groundwork to get the name out there and create the success of the organization. So then I'm lucky enough to then be inside of a growing company that's seeing a lot of success, which then that fuels everything, that enables you to be able to be hiring more people and enabling you to grow. And so that, I think, is a big piece of the pie in general, is staying kind of grounded and humble in that sense. But yeah, it was absolutely a lot of lessons learned, and a lot of cool things that we were able to carve out for ourselves. So much of the job was entrepreneurial, and I think that that lent itself to maybe some of the success. Was really, for us, we were seeing people advance their careers when they were able to have kind of an entrepreneurial mindset, in that you're always looking for ways that you can participate or contribute when it may not be asked of you, because when you are a startup, these things don't exist already. There aren't big
Mhm.
processes, so really having to, you have to insert yourself in a way um, that gets you kind of to the forefront, or gives you opportunities to be able um, to grow and to strive. So that could be anything from coming up with processes that can be used internally, to seeking out maybe external things that you can participate in, like
Mm.
um, you know affiliate summit, being a speaker, or asking to maybe go after new clients, could be anything, but just always thinking about how you can better advance the company will help to advance yourself.
That's a huge distinction. Do you think that's a common thing found in, because you obviously must have hired and been in the interview process at different levels at those organizations. Did you see that a lot, or is that initiative self-starter? Is that something that's unique?
Jamie, that's a great question, and I would like to ask you too, because I feel like when we first were doing interviews, like back in the way back in the day, so much of our process was just a gut check. Can I hang out with this person, you know, for 8 hours a day or 12 hours a day?
Yeah.
A lot of it was, they'll learn. We can always teach somebody affiliate marketing. It's not going to be a skill that a lot of people know already. It's not necessarily taught in schools, like all these things, back 10 years ago. Um, we really just kind of relied on the clicky factor, if you will, like how well you click with somebody, personality, that kind of thing. Um, and then obviously that has, as you kind of grow and mature, we came up with, I would say, more sophisticated hiring practices, where you're really going through either giving them tests, of
Hmm.
like presentations that they may have to do, or we used to give people blog examples where they essentially set up an affiliate account and maybe have to put tracking links on their site and that kind of thing. So much more in depth in terms of the skill set that you're looking for. And that was one thing that I always try to figure out how to best pull out of people, is the self starter mentality,
Hmm.
because I do think it's difficult sort of to find. I mean, I think it's certainly a percentage of people, you either have it or you don't. And in the same way that you might, some people just are fine with that too. They may just want to come to work and get their job done, and they can be very effective doing that. But they maybe aren't going to be wanting to or willing to put in sort of some of that extra effort, which is fine. You need all types, I think,
Hmm.
but
Yeah, definitely.
for the organization and in certain growth periods, we really needed a specific, that kind of self starter. So I think it's hard to flesh that out sometimes in an interview process, and something that I always certainly did try different methods, or different line of questions, to try to find that. But it's interesting because I think for us, I certainly came across surprises, if you will. Some people maybe you hire, you assume have these qualities, and then end up not, or the other way around too, where maybe they end up being a really big superstar that you hadn't anticipated. So I haven't found the magic answer for that. How do you tackle that with your interviewing processes?
I was just hoping you had the magic answer.
Ah!
No, we have struggled with it. So I would love to share all my hiring mistakes. We don't have time today for
I know. I
that.
feel like that could be its own. That's a whole nother
Oh,
episode.
is a whole other episode. And, you know, it took me a long time to identify that that initiative was a thing we wanted to hire for.
Yeah,
So like in my head, or somewhere in me, I knew that's what we wanted, but it took me years to articulate that. Because like I'm sure I've never had an issue with that. I've had the blessing of growing up in a family that was just what we did. Like
yeah,
we talked business at the dining room table. I had a resume probably a decade earlier than most people. Like we talked about this stuff. We helped my dad get his next career moves, all this sort of stuff. So it was really difficult for me to see that's not everybody, and that is
yeah,
unique. So we made a lot of mistakes in our hiring and brought people on, but I do think like that's the difference between like a B plus or an A player and an A
yeah.
plus player. And so what we've done now is we spent a lot of time about 4 years ago diving into what are the characteristics we want, and we did the same thing. Like, do we want to work with these people? Will they be a good fit? Because like a startup, most of this stuff we can teach. It's but if you don't want to build relationships with people, if you don't want to take the initiative to be the best that you can be,
Yeah.
uh, you're going to struggle. So we actually landed on 4 characteristics from a Patrick Lancioni book,
Mm.
and they are humility, hunger, and now that we're on tape, I'm going to forget the other two, but it's hunger, humility. So anyway, but those are the 2 hardest ones to
Yeah.
find.
Yeah.
And so I had to take myself out of the interview process until the very end, because I had to learn that there's a part of me that sees the best in every single person.
Mm.
And I also think I can help them uncover that.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of arrogance in there that I can discover that and help them, I can turn this around for them. So we changed the
Yeah.
hiring process. I'm at the end after everyone thinks it's a good hire, and the team is trained on the process. And the characteristics of hunger is what that initiative is. So I have a question at the end that I ask. That's from a Tim Ferriss podcast
Mm.
with Cal. Oh, he does the What I Learned column for Esquire,
Okay.
and he asks a question. It's Dr. Dre's question. So Dr. Dre would ask this question, say, "What was the last project that kept you working on it for more than 36 hours straight?"
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and now most of my staff has stolen that. So by the time I'm in the interview, I have to come up with something else. But it talks about passion. It talks
Yeah.
about, so that's we try to come up with questions to discover that. Come up with,
Yeah.
we have different interview process, steps in the process, and we try to identify that. So I haven't found a single bullet or
Yeah.
a silver bullet. I can say that we've been way more successful with that than every other thing I've tried.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, even just for self reflection. I found
Yeah.
myself kind of thinking about that in this career transition, early on when I was trying to think of like, all right, where do I want to go next? Do I want to stay in this industry? Do I want to go in a new industry? Just trying to kind of figure out what was going to, like you said, what am I passionate about? And that's what I ended up doing. I found myself in one interview process where they had a project, and I don't know, I took it. I didn't know what to really expect of it in terms of how much I would enjoy it. And it was basically just a data dump, and you had to go through this data and come up with recommendations. So they say, like, come up with a few recommendations based on this data. Anyway, I found myself working on this for like 12 hours. I was up till 2 in the morning. I had ended
Oh,
up with like
wow.
a dozen recommendations. Just I couldn't stop myself because I loved it
Yeah.
so much. And I didn't
I'm now
kn-
excited about it.
yeah,
Tell me more.
I didn't even know that about myself. You know what I mean? It was really surprising to just be aware of that and to recognize, like, oh yeah, this is that sort of fire of excitement that I love. And okay, I didn't know data analyst was like one of those things. But so I think that's a great question and good for everybody to kind of reflect on.
Yeah, I would say 90% of people look at me like, what? They've never done anything that
Yeah.
they didn't go they stayed up overnight working on. And like you said, it's good self-reflection. There are a few things, but maybe it's been a while for me. I've spent all night working on something. Um, but yeah, that's awesome. So you've led probably one of the funnest teams I've ever had the pleasure of working with, and shout out to Nick and Tiffany.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
three have always been some of the most fun uh, team to work with, but also individuals. So tell me about some of and then you led through a time of acquisition and transition. Tell me, what are some of the keys for you, leading teams, leading yourself, leading companies,
Yeah.
in general, and then through turbulence.
Yeah. I do think, there's been so many lessons learned, and like you said, through either acquisition or just through time spent, growing a company. So I think some of the key things, like I said, for me, sort of a personal ethos is always to be humble and kind. And I think that helps to keep you grounded. And I think it's also, you know, kindness. That's one of the things that we really try to get across, not only obviously kindness to each other, but to clients. That can be a very hard thing to do when you've got somebody that may be upset and angry and, maybe
Mm.
calling you names or whatever it may be. But to always just try to remain that kind of calm, kind. You never know what somebody else may be going through that could be triggering this. And if you just kind of can express that sort of calm kindness, you tend to be able to get through to people a little bit better and resolve in a good way. So I think that that's always just kind of something I personally try to hold on to. And I think it actually can work against you in some ways, which has been interesting for me in terms of the struggle, of personal reflection of, should I be hanging on to this or not? Because I think people, can equate humble with a lack of confidence or maybe confuse kindness with weakness. So it can be hard and challenging, but I think, through the end for me, I think it's important to just retain that because I found that it's helps you to be much more approachable, both with staff and clients and just your life interactions, and how you want to be. But also, I think just from a leadership perspective, I think it's really important to stay engaged and to stay excited. Those are the two main kind of takeaways, I would say. And from an engagement standpoint, that's both, anybody both on a personal level and also in their work. So, I found that sometimes if you end up having interpersonal conflict or conflict within a team, oftentimes it could just be sort of personality clashes. So I
Mhm.
always tried to find ways that we could engage our staff and our team members, so that they could get to know each other in a more whole way, much more well rounded, so that you have a better understanding of where people maybe are coming from. And that doesn't necessarily, I think happy hours are awesome and great, but doesn't have to necessarily be happy hours, because maybe, some people don't want to stay after work, or maybe people don't drink. Like, you never know. So I always
Yeah,
try to
yeah.
come up with other creative ways too that you can mix it up and kind of keep it spontaneous. So some of my favorite things that we
I
did.
was just going to ask that.
Yeah. The favorite things that I've done were, we did a staff Olympics, kind of office style. We did a Olympics day in the office. It was really fun. We've done. I like to do Pictionary. Maybe we always had these weekly meetings, and if I didn't have, something for that week, or I don't know, maybe people were out, I always like to do that was going to be our Pictionary day, make it a whole big office thing. We've done trivia. Yeah, even you could do things like, those escape rooms are fun, like all sorts of different things. Oh, Taco Bell Tuesday was another one that I used to do.
Ooh.
So some people, they may respond to something. They maybe hate Taco Bell, but maybe they love trivia. Like, you're gonna hit on something
Yeah.
eventually if you kind of keep it creative and fun. So being engaged, so in a personal way, but then professionally, I would say you can stay engaged by always maintaining the standards for yourself that you expect of anybody else, So I would never
Mm.
ask my team to do something that I wouldn't be willing to also do. So, like for Black Friday, for example, if we needed team members to come in over the weekend, I'm not going to sit there and be like, yep, you need to go in. Well, good luck with that. I'm going to be at home enjoying the holiday. Like, no, even if I can't,
People do that.
I know. And so I think, the best managers that I've had in life, and what I try to kind of emulate is that, like, to really roll up the sleeves and always be willing to get dirty if I'm going to ask the same of others, and I think that really helps to earn the respect of others. And they know that you then really do truly understand, and it's not just lip service. If you are also, I can remember going in and helping with, even tickets in a VP role. I was also helping out with our customer support tickets, just because maybe I knew that we were slammed and I wanted to help
Mm.
them out, or if maybe somebody was out, So you're just never above any task, I think. And like I said, then you're living up to the same standards that you expect, um, of others. And I think you can do that even if you're not in the role. So I think it's easier to do when we were in the same team. When I was in client services, and I knew how to also respond to clients and that kind of thing. But taking over for ShareASale, now I was looking after our dev team too, which obviously if they had an issue, I am not a tech, I don't know how to fix dev issues,
Yeah.
but I could stay up, like, so if something broke, let's say on a weekend, I could stay up with them until it's fixed, just on Slack, making sure that they knew I was there, that I was paying attention. I could watch the emergency communications, so that they don't have to worry about, oh, are our clients upset or not. I could watch that at least while they're trying to fix the technical
Yeah.
issues. But, again, even though I can't actually help fix the problem, they at least know that I cared enough to try to be involved.
Yeah, and be there for them, that support. I love that phrase, maintain the standards you expect from everyone else. And then you talked about humility. And one thing that I think we get humility wrong, like you said, like weakness, and the definition that we use is they have, an adequate or a realistic understanding of their strengths and weaknesses.
Hmm.
So being able, to know, like, I do this very well and I don't do that very well, and having the humility to be able to see the differences is huge. And I wrote down all those examples of things, ways you keep the team engaged, because that's super important right now. Where we went remote, I think end of March, April. We are now going fully remote for all of 2021, and actually. moving our large office to a very small one, just a small meeting place for a few of us that need to kind of get out. But that sort of engagement's even more important now.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, it really, uncovers sort of that personal level too, because people are at home. So there could be all sorts of fun things that you can do there, like showing off your pets or, you know, I don't know, even having cooking contests where you maybe show your, like those Pinterest fails, see if people can
Oh, I have
create,
many of those.
yeah, various projects. You could do art, from home. You could do those paint kind of
Oh yeah.
classes.
Yeah, we're working on some way to keep everyone spending time together, and I think like that engagement. What I've learned through leading two companies, also leading in church, was a shared experience
Hmm.
brings people together, and it gives them, especially in a really diverse team,
Yeah.
uh, it gives them a common thing to talk about, and something, an experience that they share that then they can build off of. And so those things, like some people can kind of look at those things, oh, staff Olympic day, or we do a happy hour and one of us makes a drink, or something like that, as this is not business. Harumph, I need to just we just need to produce.
Yeah.
But they miss that, like, people want connection and they're productive when they're happy.
Yes.
um, and that engagement is super important. So I'm really glad that you highlighted that.
Yeah, and you're right about shared experiences too, because there's inevitably, no matter what sort of outing or, because we used to do, even sporting events that you maybe can go to, or restaurant dinners or whatever, but there's inevitably going to be some sort of funny story. There's going to be something that happened, somebody did something, and those end up being those memories or, moments that people can look back on and have that commonality.
Yeah, we did a scavenger hunt, a photo
Oh, yeah, I
scavenger
love
hunt,
those.
and Nick and two other from your team were here with us, and that was amazing and hilarious.
Yeah.
Uh, well, one thing you and I talked about, and it kind of goes to how things are changing economically and just in the industry, that we talked about on our prep call, was morality in brands, and you wanted to share a little more of that. So, do you remember what we talked about?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think referencing there were a couple of several. So that's what I think really caught my attention. There were two um not related webinars, industry just sort of events, speeches, where people were talking and just discussing, how corporations have changed and the relationship with consumers and what have you. Anyway, so on two separate occasions, they were talking about, and they referenced as a quote that consumers are looking to corporations to be their moral compass, that, individuals look to those brands to define for themselves what their moral compass should be. And I found that to be really fascinating and an interesting maybe shift, and got me thinking, what is what's the deal with that? Because I feel
Yeah.
like, we really, to me, just growing up and how you develop your morals, I feel like these are through the conversations you have with your family, your friends, your mentors, your spiritual leaders, um, teachers, leaders, all of this. They're through relationships, through deep personal relationships. And so it got me thinking. First, I don't know if that was maybe just a misquote where they were really trying to say that, now more than ever, consumers are maybe looking for purpose driven brands who solve problems or who maybe are in line with what they believe in. That 100% fantastic. I think, I think that's a great movement and I love seeing that, but it was interesting that it was not phrased that way, that they were saying the
Yeah.
opposite, that it was really that people are looking to have the brands defined for them. So I think that is an interesting shift. And I'm curious if have you seen that or heard of that or,
Yeah, maybe I haven't been paying attention. I didn't notice it until you mentioned it, and I think there's a small distinction that is a major difference
Yeah.
between what you said of environment's important to me. I need a jacket. I'm going to Patagonia. Or on, maybe on the other side, Second Amendment is important to me. I'm going to go to this company that supports that. That's different than, oh, I love Patagonia. Well, what do they think is important?
Yeah. How should I think?
How should
Patagonia.
I think? And I
Right.
keep coming, like, there's all these kind of things that tie together, but I keep coming back to the movie Wall-E. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah.
And I keep thinking how this is just another way that we're looking to someone else to do the work so we don't have to. And to me, and maybe this is harsh, maybe just this is a frustration of what's been going on with masks and no masks and all lives matter, Black Lives Matter, and all of this. But it seems to me like I don't go to a company for my moral compass. I go somewhere else for that. And then sometimes I shop according to that. Sometimes I shop because it's what I want, to
Yeah.
be honest with you. So I think that was really surprising to me. And now I'm kind of noticing it everywhere. So, I mean, that's what I was thinking. It's a way that we're, and is it because there's so much information available that we can't possibly weed through it, and we trust uh, this
Yeah.
company, and we trust this news network, or we trust this personality, and I'm gonna outsource,
Yeah.
yeah, my thinking for me.
That's interesting. That is a good point. And maybe that is what it's about. Or maybe, you bring up the good point with sort of influencers. Maybe it's more that consumers are seeing in others who they want to be, and they'll just emulate that. Um, but I think it is kind of it was an alarming slash frightening
Yeah.
trend to be hearing about, just because, at the end of the day, a company, they're looking to make money. Yes, it's going to be perhaps a mission backed company where they are giving back to the community in some way, shape, or form. But ultimately, no company that's for profit is going to have 100% altruistic,
Hmm.
motives
Yeah,
behind
yeah.
what they're doing. So it just was struck me as interesting, because I feel like in a lot of ways consumers are much more aware and sort of awake, if you will, in terms of the research that they do to buy a product, and knowing kind of maybe the sourcing and the manufacturing and all of it that goes behind it. So on one hand, it feels like we're becoming smarter as consumers in that sense. But then on the other hand, I was like, but this seems like the exact opposite, where we're, becoming, I don't know, like
Yeah.
you said, maybe lazy in a way, to rely on others to tell us how to think. It's just frightening. So I thought that was really interesting, and kind of an interesting point to even think about from a corporation perspective, in terms of that's a lot of pressure. And now they have to not only think about selling coats, but also defining a moral compass. Like, what? That's seems outside of the scope.
Yeah, and like the advertising
Yeah.
impact of that. Like, now, do all our creative elements need to include a social aspect to it? And will there be a brand for this political proclivity, and then the same product but a different brand for this political proclivity? Um, and then, yeah, so I wonder, like, practically, does that impact how we advertise products, not just through the affiliate channel, but any channel at all?
Right. Right. Absolutely. And I do think it's interesting. I do think there has been more and more where companies or brands are being more vocal about what their values are, whatever it may be. So that could be in line with something relevant or current, or it could just be, not, but just who they are, and really trying to promote that more and more. I was on one uh, one talk with the marketing, I think the CMO from Levi Jeans, and she was talking
Hmm.
about that they have always been big supporters in these variety of ways with their community, but they maybe were not as good at communicating that and bringing that to the forefront. So post COVID, unrelated, the causes maybe were not necessarily related to health care, or giving back in that way that's related to COVID, but they still were making an effort to bring it to light, just some of the things that they support from a community standpoint in kind of this new age.
I remember they were kind of on the leading edge a few years ago with their campaign of the uniform of the revolution. I think that was their one advertising campaign, um, and that was really putting a stake in the ground.
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, that's it too, right? Like
Yeah.
you have to kind of stand behind whatever it is that you may believe in, for better or for worse.
Do you see that filter down to the affiliate channel? So, you know, it is the Profitable Performance Marketing podcast, and we're definitely going to talk about affiliate marketing. But like these macro things have an impact, and typically the affiliate channel is seen as very
Mm,
transactional. A good portion of it is very offer driven. And now, but there have been affiliates and are affiliates that are socially minded, that are charity driven. But do you see that kind of change and the general changing that's going on socially and this aspect of looking to brands for morality and at the very least wanting to align with the brands that align with your morality and your views? Do you see that trickling down to the type of partners advertisers work with, the way that they work with them, the way that they advertise to
mm.
consumers through through this channel?
Yeah, I think that's a great question and a great point to bring up. And I do. I think that brands are much more conscious of who they are partnering with and maybe much more aware of who they're letting in to promote their brands. And hats off to that. I mean, that's fantastic. I think that that's always been kind of a weak point in affiliate marketing is, when a brand may just set up a program and expect it to be kind of a magic bullet and they just let it run, without a second thought, um, which is not helpful. So I think that that is great that we're seeing more and more awareness there. I think that we've also seen a lot of people thinking outside of the box in terms of their partnerships. So maybe be it non-traditional affiliates or maybe trying to even partner up with other brands. I've seen a lot of examples, of that where brands maybe come together to say, hey, maybe I can feature you in your newsletter. We're both kind of trying to
Hmm.
accomplish the same goal here. So they're maybe doing more brand to brand partnerships, but also, just non-traditional. So maybe through, I feel like that's been around for a bit, because at ShareASale days, we were talking about the storefronts. For example, that tool,
Yeah.
I don't know, we rolled that out maybe 5 or 7 years ago, but even then, kind of tapping into these non traditional affiliates. And it's been great to see this come up more and more in conversations where people are maybe proactively trying to think about that. So, are they partnering up with schools or Rotary clubs or even doctors' offices or whatever it may be, just kind of thinking of other new ways. And I think not only a result of just COVID or, Black Lives Matter movement, not just sort of the situations that are around us, but also just from an economic standpoint of trying to find new revenue streams. So I think that's
Hmm.
been cool to see. And I think it's been cool to see too, just for the publisher side, likewise, thinking of new models. We're continuing to see new publishers come into the space that maybe were only working on tenancy before, but now maybe are open to CPA. So that's been really
Hmm.
cool. There's also been a lot of talk of content. So the type of publisher sites that the consumer is looking to. There's a lot more time spent now on research. So consumers are really, going to maybe review sites to read up on products before they're making purchases. So there's been a lot higher demand for those content sites, which has been, I think, kind of a new COVID trend. And the other thing that I think is exciting about the time that we're living in right now are just all of the new demographic coming into the e-commerce space. So there's been a lot of talk
Yeah.
about, the boomers generation who maybe were never comfortable shopping online, that are now. And so we're shifting some of those shopping habits. And I think that's a great, there's endless possibility there with publishers who maybe can target the older generations, but also for brands, and how they're making their consumer shopping experience as easy as possible, so that those consumers maybe continue to shop online even after stores open. So I think that's going to be a really exciting trend to see, how much we can maintain this kind of e-commerce spike even after COVID passes. And I think if it's anything like, we used to see this from a network level in Q4, you would have, big spikes, and that would sometimes end up just resetting where your new bar is. So then going
Yeah,
into the
yeah.
next year, that's where we start, and then you're going up from there and there. And so I wonder if, and I hope that may be what we see after COVID, where now, this is our new baseline, and the growth will just be continuing.
Yeah, and I saw somewhere on LinkedIn today, someone, I think it was LinkedIn, they said, they posed the question, you know, are you taking advantage of the 10-year growth in e-commerce over the last 90
Mm,
days? And that concept of we've taken a 10-year leap
yeah,
in the last 3 months of migration is enormous. Do you think that puts a greater emphasis on the importance of the affiliate channel? Does it elevate it in terms of the other channels available to an advertiser, um, or does it do nothing at all? What do you think about that?
great question. I think it does. I mean, maybe that's because I'm in the space, so I'm hopeful that it does. But no, I really do think that it does, because what you can't argue with is the return that you see. With affiliate, we know the PMA study they put out in 2018. I think they were quoted as 12 to 1 on the ROAS. So
Yeah,
you know you can't argue with those numbers, and it's such a safe, I think, channel in terms of, for brands, in terms of what they're going to be investing. You really can't compete with something that is purely performance based. So I think it's a great time for affiliate. It's an exciting time to be in this space. And yeah, I think that there may be some level out. We obviously can't expect to see 10-year growth each year going forward, but I do think that we're going to
yeah.
kind of stay at this elevated level, and then see sort of natural growth from there.
Yeah, and you and I, we've been around for a long time. We've seen this before, um, in recessions, in other instances that have kept us from going to our malls. Um, hey, I've produced a bump that we never saw, leave the
Yeah.
industry. Um, One of the you talk about unique partnerships, that kind of brings to mind of and you've said pivot a number of times. This is a great time to pivot, and one of the pivoting is one of the ways that strong companies and affiliates, and affiliate managers and people in the space can use to succeed right now. Because when this happened, there was a shock. It's like, what is going on? Then there was maybe dismay
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
everything's burning, and every month we have a new thing to seemingly maybe every week to deal with. um, what have been some of the unique pivots that you've seen in the industry?
Oh man, we have seen some unique things, and I feel like we've seen unique pivots both in the way operations are handled, and unique marketing um, examples as well. I think early on, well, no, I'll start with this. I would say operations side has been really inspiring, I guess, to see how traditional brick and mortar have quickly spun up and relied on their digital efforts. So from everything from the curbside pickup to maybe where they're offering part of their kind of consumer engagement that used to be offline, now online. For example, there's a beauty brand who was talking about how so much of their um, unique, value proposition is in their consults, their consultations that they used to have when people come into the store and they could consult you on your beauty needs and then make the recommendations for product. So in COVID, they had to quickly pivot and then started offering where the associate was in the store, but they're doing virtual consultations. So you could go online
Oh,
and still
wow.
be walked around, and you're having sort of a maybe a Zoom or whatever digital consultation where you can see each other, and then the associate was walking them through the store to provide some of that offline experience online. And having to kind of come up with this, and they spun it up in a matter of weeks. I think that's cool. That kind of thing we've really seen. And even just locally, with the curbside pickup here, all of the ways that maybe big box stores have created ease of use for the consumer to be able to come and do what they need to do online to make it safe for them to do their shopping. So those have been kind of neat operational. I think from a marketing perspective, did you see that there was a Russian airline that launched, I think it was called a fly at home promotion, where they were giving,
I did not see
yeah,
that.
it was a really cool marketing, I thought, kind of a unique marketing campaign where they gave their customers 100 free air miles for staying at home. So if you were a loyalty member with the airline, you could just log into their site and you would click, an I'm at home button verifying that you were staying put. And they were giving their clients up to 3,000, I think, loyalty points because you could go in every day for a period of a month or whatever. So it's
Wow.
kind of cool. We've seen some really unique, I think, marketing efforts. There was even with product, I know Heinz, we were doing a lot of puzzles perhaps here in our stay at home time. And
Yep.
Heinz ketchup, they did a giveaway where they created it was like a 570-piece ketchup puzzle. It was just red, just a solid block of red. And you could tweet at them, like who you would maybe do this impossible puzzle with. And then they had like 57, puzzles that they could give away. So I think that's been cool. And then obviously it's been fun to watch all of the have you been doing this with your family, like the virtual destinations that you could go to different museums, or like when Andrew Lloyd Webber was releasing the musicals on YouTube, that kind of thing? It's been kind
Yep.
of
Yep.
fun to do that too. I think just unique ways.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of our travel clients do that,
Yeah,
and to try and keep people engaged, contests and virtual tours and things like that. So we've seen a lot of that. But yeah, the curbside stuff and whatever anyone can do, like shopping and retail, it's still happening.
exactly. Yeah.
And you just can't think of everything needs to be questioned, and it all needs to be, how can you cater to the user, and how do you do that, and the curbside, and we have small stores here in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and many have adapted very well, and others have said, we're not going to do that, and they're no longer
Yeah.
around. um, and and it's the aspect of pivoting is so important, because things are changing. In between when we talked about doing the podcast and then now doing the podcast, so much has changed, and it's only been two
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah.
Uh,
Exactly.
so it's almost like this pivoting needs to be less of a cliche or something someone talked about that you once
Right.
heard, but a skill that you develop, just like writing and presentations and leadership. You have to be able to pivot and know how to do that, and how to recognize a good pivot, how to test things quickly. And what I love about the channel, that I think a lot of advertisers, and I was talking to one that was a client of ours many years ago, and I could sense the same thing with them, that when we worked with them, is they didn't look at their affiliate partners as 1,000 different tests, and these partners that you get to work with that are testing with across industries, across audiences, across geographic
Mhm.
locations, and they're amassing this data of what's working and what isn't, and they're not cultivating that, they're not tapping into that.
Yeah.
One of the things that I always like to ask is some of the basics. um, affiliate marketing, we drive revenue, but we really drive profit. So from a top level, with your experience, you know, what's the difference, and how do we as a channel now? What are we doing? What can advertisers take advantage of to make sure they're driving profitable revenue, not just revenue?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, you know, high level, obviously, revenue, we're thinking about the income generated from your primary operations, and profit then being whatever remains after your expenses and any additional revenue streams. So I think for advertisers, their revenue is going to be the sale of their goods, but they can leverage their affiliates by looking at other partnerships that maybe will create those additional revenue streams. So, kind of going back to what I was talking about earlier, where you're looking at maybe non traditional partnerships that you can establish. And, one example I've been thinking about recently would be the sale of masks. If you can do customized
Hmm.
masks, maybe you partner up with a company like Shutterfly or Minted, who also do, heavy emphasis on customization, but perhaps not in that kind of manufacturing. They're not doing textile, and clothing. So that
Hmm.
could be an opportunity for a really unique and cool partnership to rely on each other, to fill that kind of a void, and it can be tracked through an affiliate channel. And then, like I said too, you're just with the ROI, you're from an expense standpoint, you're just going to see greater profits than you might in other channels due to that return that you're going to see. And I think, another thing to think about just in terms of expenses and maybe long term gains, I think there can be good value in looking at different tenancy options. So you may be able to get into maybe a large media partner that, for some upfront expense could yield long-term gains, because now you may have evergreen, affiliate tracking links on there, and be able to get in front of an audience that you otherwise would not have been able to. And I think now is a really good time to be looking at that tenancy, just because the publishers, may be a lot more flexible than they would have been, last year or even a few months ago.
Yeah, they're not advertisers aren't the only one who are facing challenges right now.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
they're looking for different ways that they can bring in that revenue as well. So I think, that's sort of a, uh, out of the box way of looking at affiliate. And I know it's a little bit removed because it's, not purely the performance based when you're doing a bit of tenancy, but it does still have high, return value there. And it obviously is tracked, and you are going to be held most of the time to some sort of an ROI, deliverable there. So, I think that there's good, opportunity.
Yeah, and I never understood that, the reluctance to do tenancies or paid placements, upfront payments in the affiliate channel. I know there are a lot of, they call themselves purists, that if it's not a commission, percentage of sale, then it's not an affiliate program. And I know a lot of my peers,
Yeah.
they won't work on that. And I always looked at it as, someone has an audience I want to go after. How can I negotiate access to that audience?
Yeah.
And then whatever I can negotiate. And if I'm tracking it, voila, affiliate marketing. We did some really unique things, in the past 20 years. When I started, I worked for a medical e-commerce company, and who buys medical stuff? Medical
Yeah.
students.
Yep.
And they have fraternities, and they're raising money. And so we did a very rudimentary affiliate program where they could buy all their books, and that commission went to their fraternal organizations. Worked really, really well. It was not standard.
Mhm.
We did other stuff like, package insert swaps early in the day, back in the day, with 1-800-Flowers, and between 1-800-Flowers and Coldwater Creek. So it was like, who's your audience? Who has access to that? And what kind of mutually beneficial relationship can you
Yeah.
negotiate? And how are you going to track it?
Yeah, and I love that too, with the technology that the networks have created now too. It makes it a lot easier. You can do
It
tracking
does.
through your affiliate program that maybe is not online. So having the ability to track through exclusive coupon codes or whatever it may be, I think there's so much more opportunity now than there was even 5 years ago to be that creative. Exactly what you're saying, to think about any sort of relationship that you can build, from everywhere from just your could be just your consumer and doing that word of mouth and the repeat customer and friend referral, that kind of thing. But then
Yep.
also, like you
Yep.
said, if I was selling shampoo, I'm going to be looking to stylists and salons and those kinds of avenues, in addition to obvious what you may think of more traditional affiliates, or the people that may already have a website or an account in a network. But yeah, there's endless possibilities when you think about, oh, I can do affiliate with people that maybe don't even have a website. It can literally be
Yeah.
anybody that's um, yeah, going to be using or can be an advocate for your brand.
Yeah. We did one. We had an equestrian client
Mm,
um, that they had an audience with people who went to horse clinics.
yes.
Well, it's not a big digital environment at a horse clinic. We have horses. I go to a bunch of them. I know there's not, it's not like readily available Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
You're kind of out in the middle of nowhere, but you have this audience. And when I go to these things, that you follow these personalities, and if they tell me to buy X and
Yeah.
Y, I'm going to buy X and Y. And so we use some of the network features that allowed that offline online integration and provided those clinicians with stickers to put on their
Oh, I
trailers,
love that.
with discounts for the people that were there. And so a really cool thing was we were able to establish another revenue channel for a group of people.
Hmm.
We were able to help that client reach like the perfect ideal customer the moment they were ready to buy, and it saw a lot of success. And all of that was just completely foreign to traditional affiliate marketing, but it is totally affiliate marketing.
Right. Yeah, 100%. I love that. I love that. I think I've seen something similar too with gym apparel, and tapping into personal
Hmm.
trainers, so
Yep.
being
Oh
able to
yeah.
have a trainer then tell you, okay, you're going to need these shoes and this, band or these weights or whatever. Like you said, you're going to your trusted source. So it's perfect. It's a perfect way to kind of integrate affiliate, even in an offline
Yeah.
experience.
Definitely. And that's where we're going, full channel
There you
integration.
go.
Um, Sarah, I have enjoyed this. We are almost 10 minutes over the time that I asked you to set aside. Every conversation I have with you is always fun. I really enjoy spending time. If someone would like to get a hold of you, actually, you know what? Tell me like a little bit, if you have a moment,
Yes.
what kind of projects are you excited about working on going
Oh,
forward?
yes, thank you. So what I'm really working on right now, I have a few things in the pipeline. I've been doing a lot of work with the agency team Bespoke, who's great set of ladies over there, and the work that I've been doing is really publisher based, a lot of publisher development. So if anybody needs help with, let's say, recruitment efforts, that kind of thing, kind of getting more expansion, and even thinking about these kind of non-traditional affiliates and um, those ways that you can grow your program, that would be kind of the work that I'm doing. And also working with brand cycle at the moment, and helping them, kind of goes back to our tenancy conversation. But so, full
Hmm.
disclosure,
Yeah.
that is also some of the work that I'm doing with some of their media partners, and their ad spots, and selling those sponsored posts. So it's been really interesting kind of being on another side of the fence, if you will, going from sort
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
a high level operations to back into very strategic, um, this publisher side of things. So that's what I'm up to. And if you want to get a hold of me, I am at sarahbeeskowblay.com, or on LinkedIn. It's an easy way to stay in touch.
Awesome. Well, I will include links to your profile and to your website in our show notes. So thank you so much. Good luck in your next
Thank
endeavor.
you. Same.
And if you do want to reach out to Sarah, please do so. But Sarah, thank you so much. I learned a ton from one of the I think premier leaders in the space and a true affiliate marketing
Thank
legend.
you.
And you may not want to own that, but I am going to promote that. That's what we're going to
Well,
do here.
thank you, JB. You're very kind. It was a pleasure talking to you today.
But I hope you enjoyed that discussion. I learned a ton, and I always do with these, and Sarah delivered as well, if not better, than anyone else. So I hope you learned a lot about affiliate marketing. I hope you learned a lot about leadership and the affiliate channel. So if you do want to get a hold of Sarah, you can go to sarahbeeskowblay.com or find her on LinkedIn. I will include both of those in our show notes. And remember, if you need help with your affiliate program, we have a strategy development product that we can put together for you. The exact strategy in all elements of your affiliate program. You can just go to JEBCommerce.com/strategy, and that will get you to that service. Or you can just email me at gethelp@jebcommerce.com, and I will help you out personally with that. Now, one thing I do also want to say is if you found this podcast valuable, can you go over to Apple and give us a review? Maybe share this episode on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. And also, if you'd like to be a guest on the show, I'd love to have you. You can email me at gethelp@jebcommerce.com. So anyway, if you love this podcast, please share it. If you have any other ideas for guests, please share it. And I look forward to chatting with you soon.